Liz is has a PhD in special education and is SOAR's family support specialist and alumni cultivator. And she has been working tirelessly to support all of you during this time. We've got Dale Sparacino, one of our board members, and is also, works with the Christ School in Asheville and has been a longtime member of not only SOAR's board, but for years and years we were staff partners and have had some wonderful adventures in Belize and Costa Rica. Rick Levoie is a dear friend, and if you've heard me and you've attended any of the webinars, I frequently reference some of Rick Levoie's things. Two of my favorite quotes that every staff who comes through SOAR hear. The first quote is, kids who you want to love the least in the moment are the ones who need it the most. And the other quote that I love so much is, there's nothing more unequal than the equal treatment of unequals. He's a prolific writer, an amazing speaker, and we are honored to have him here with us today. Thank you, Rick, for coming. Jeremy Neidens is the director of our Eagleview Ranch program and has been with us for many, many years. And we call him the director of the Wild Wild West. And then Joe Geier is the director of the Academy and has been managing that program now for the last, how many years, Joe? The last 10 years? Well, boy, time flies. And has watched that program flourish under his leadership. So, Liz, take it away.
Okay, so some people wrote in some questions earlier, and I have sent them to the panel ahead of time, but I'm just going to go in order that they were sent in. And by the way, we are recording this. I want to let you know. I'm not sure if we're going to share it on the website or just share it back to you all who are here or who registered, but let's not give any information about our children that might embarrass them. How about that? So I'm just going to use first names when I'm talking about kids. All right, so this is from a mom whose son is almost 17, and he wants to be a hairdresser. He has a strong passion for being a hairdresser, and he always has since he was born. But what's happening is he's being really terribly bullied at school. And so what she wants to know is, what can she do to help him follow his dreams and keep his self-esteem up as he's moving forward, towards his dream. And so I'm just going to sort of put that to the panel. Does anybody, and you guys can just raise your hand. We can see you raise your hand, whoever wants to take that question.
I'll take it. So often, kids get bullied for a myriad of reasons in high school. High school and middle school are really tough for our kids. And one of the things that we always encourage families to do is to help paint a picture for them of what life is going to be like beyond high school. Because even though it's their world now, it means nothing in the scheme of life. My wife and I were watching a Netflix, and a lot of folks are watching Netflix these days, but we watched that Netflix documentary called Cheer, and some of the most wonderful characters that came out of that, experienced exactly the same type of bullying in high school that they were able to put in their rearview mirror and just sail forward. And so there are two things that you have to do. The first is paint a picture of what adulthood looks like and how small these small-minded bullies are in the larger scheme of things. And then the second thing is, you just keep trying to create and surround around your child the people that are going to affirm and lift them up and help them, encourage and nurture their dreams and hopes in ways that, that bolster them versus the small-minded individuals that are bullying them. And in this time frame, when everyone is virtual, you have the absolute wonderful pleasure of just simply not looking and getting involved in social media that erodes you. So those are a couple of my thoughts. Anybody else?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, John, with everything you said. I think that I try to convince teenagers and their parents something that's completely true, which is ironically, the real world is much kinder to our people than the world of school is and the world of adolescence. And I remind adolescents that you are now, when you leave adolescence, you're leaving the toughest time in your life. It'll be much tougher than adulthood because first of all, in adolescence, if you think about it, the American school system celebrates the generalist. The kid who was the valedictorian at your local high school was a kid who could do equally well in math, science, history, social studies. The kid who gets all A's. And then we turn those kids loose in the real world, and the real world doesn't care about a generalist. There's no place for a generalist. You know, I say they're fun to watch on Jeopardy once in a while, but you notice they generally wear pretty cheap suits. You know, because there's no place in the world for a generalist. The real world wants a specialist. As I read this first letter, the word that jumped off at me is passion. As you guys all know, we deal with so many kids who just don't have the fire in their belly and don't have passion. This kid's got it. Why would you do anything but give them 100% support to get through that? And to, as you said, surround with people who understand that and try to harden the shell a little bit against the people who don't. But I mean, you don't see that word passion pop up all that often. I don't think there's any reason to do anything but give them 100% support.
I recently took my daughter to an Imagine Dragons concert, and I was astonished at how much of the concert the lead singer spent talking about what a miserable experience adolescence was, and how tough high school was, and and being bullied, and and just he imploring his audience to just not give up, not to give in, that there were better times ahead. And in fact, he wrote a song called "Hero to Zero" or "Zero to Hero." That every time I hear it, I'm quite moved because I understood the passion behind what he was trying to say. I can tell you, I recently went to my 35th high school reunion, and we were we were all the same. It didn't matter who you were or what you did or what your big deal in high school was. What mattered was the kind of person you are. So yeah, stay passionate.
One of the things I would say, Liz, is encouraging, if that's what he wants to do, maybe he could do some course at tech school or a community college to kind of start getting into that and really learning the process and the tools needed to be successful in that, working in a hair salon, just to kind of get your foot in the door, see what the daily living is like and all of that. But, I would think that, maybe a part-time job or something, and tech school or community college would, could probably be a good start too.
I love that. That was my thought as well. Doing some sort of internship or work in the field right now. Be great. All right, so our next question is from a mom who has a 19-year-old who is on the spectrum and very intelligent, but he seems to be attached to his phone and gaming devices. So they're doing online school at this time with a junior college, but the schedule isn't every day, and so that blows the organization of a regular schedule. So I want him to take more responsibility for taking his meds, taking showers, getting done what he needs to do without arguing and nagging. He's the only one at home. They've tried schedules, but she feels like if she's not on him, he's back on his phone and so forth. So I think there's a lot of parents out there who are having this same issue, regardless of the age of their child. So panel, what do you think? Who wants to take that one?
I'm kind of dealing with it every day right now with our distance learning with the school where I teach. It's all boys. Mm-hmm. And my comment when we first started this distance learning to the department head was, when we were standing over them in the classroom, trying to get them to do their work, we were having issues. So, doing it long distance certainly is difficult. And one of the big things that I've done with parents is, making sure that the boys are studying in a place that is academic conducive to studying, and having them, you know, bottom line, earning time on their phone and with their games if they're getting up, you know, doing their routine, taking a shower, taking their meds, getting their homework done. It would seem to me that, you know, having this student earn some time on the phone or with the gaming, you know, would be something that would benefit the student trying to get into that routine.
I agree. Anybody else have anything to add?
Well, if you're going to put together a schedule, I think there needs to be a degree of choice, where you say, these are the things that have got to happen. You have the choice in terms of the order you want to do them, time you want to do them, when you want to do it, but then make a commitment to it. We're talking about a 19-year-old here. There are some really wonderful lists on the internet about the skills that you need to have to be an adult, the things you need to be able to do. I bet that list would be very overwhelming if it would be presented to him, and to say, we really need to get going on this. There's just a lot of adult skills that are expected and anticipated adult would have, and you don't have those, and we need to really get things going and put together a contract and a program for him. He's a young adult, and I think we need to make those things clear to him that he is going to be in his own, hopefully sometime soon, and he really needs to take a look at that list and see the things he can and can't do.
Rick, could you share that list with me, and I can share it out with the folks?
Yeah, I absolutely will. It was actually put together a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it was for a kid who had gone to college, and or maybe he was going to college and was going to have his own apartment, and the dad put together a very thoughtful list of the things you need to be able to do in order to function as an adult. And the kid realized, I'm nowhere near, you know, I go into the supermarket and ask where you keep the toast. You know, I don't have any idea some of the skills that I've got to have. And a little bit of, I don't want to say tough love because I don't like the phrase, but a little bit of a self-awareness that there are a lot of these skills you don't have.
Hey, Jeremy, you know, so many of the GAP students, you know, the GAPers that we have a chance to work with are dealing with, you know, these sort of device addictions, or, you know, how to manage how much of their time they're spending on these, you know, on the computer or on their cell phones versus doing the things that really sort of draw out the best version of themselves.
Right.
How are you guys handling and helping those GAPers, those participants, prepare for going home when it comes to screen time?
I think it's a little different for us because in the GAP program, there is give and take restrictions on, like, you know, the more you're doing, the more screen time, and the more productive you are, and the more you keep your schedule, and the more you do your daily roles and responsibilities, the more freedom and flexibility you have with your devices and screen time. And then, like, it kind of gets reined back in. So it's like the gap year is 8 months long. So over that time period, it's kind of a training. And a lot of these participants come in very, you know, quote unquote, addicted to devices and screens. But I talk to all of them when they leave, and they're like, you know, like, that was a massive challenge for me, but like learning how to regulate in an environment where there was some constraints was definitely a positive thing for me, even though I hated it in the moment. And, yeah, you know, for this young man, I think it's a couple of different things. Everybody's had some great points, but I think that there's got to be investment on his end somehow. And like, what is it and how is it that you help him as a young adult be invested in this process? And sometimes it might be incentivized through, you know, you do X, Y, and Z, you get C, you know, whatever math you want to put into that equation. But some of it's also like, and I hear this from parents all the time, they're like, I don't want to be, like, my kid's not a kid anymore, and I don't want to be the person that's the nag or the instigator of all the arguments. So a lot of families like look at, you know, mentors or coaches to kind of have an outside entity and source that's checking in with their kid. Sometimes they do it once a week, sometimes it's multiple times a week, but having some outside person from the family that's helping invest. But once again, that young adult has to have that investment in that process, or else it doesn't really work.
The idea of course, coaching is become a cottage industry now, and it's really changed in some cases saved the lives of a lot of young adults. And of course, the coach never gets in the field. The coach never gets up to bat. The coach never throws the ball. The coach is on the sidelines, encouraging, helping plan, but then turns that task over to the young adult. And I think that's why it's been so successful and so helpful to so many kids. I couldn't agree more. I think bringing a coach in for this young man could make an extraordinary difference.
Mm-hmm. And I think that piece that y'all have both addressed really well is that notion of the parents are tired of arguing, trying to set something up and arguing. But we've got a lot of questions. I think that was great. Let me go to the next one, which is our only child just turned 13. We continue to have the same issues of lying, stealing money from my purse, using my credit card for online purchases, and excessive talking, questions, interruptions, and noises for attention. It's like Groundhog Day. No matter what we do or say, it doesn't seem to make any difference. We've tried therapists, that hasn't been successful. He seems to be a good student in a mainstream school and has good social skills, but they're considering a boarding school because of this behavior issue. So what do you recommend?
If I could go from the back end, having run residential boarding schools for 30 years, that behavior is not tolerated at boarding schools either. I mean, he really would have to learn that those are, I have a real problem with lying with special needs kids with ADD, because we tend to look at it as he has poor character and poor values. 9 times out of 10, my experience has been when a kid lies, it's because of the impulsivity and disinhibition. So dad says, my hammer's broken, did you do it? He's automatically going to say no. And then after a while, he's going to begin to be defending what he thinks is the truth. He imagines he didn't break the hammer. Sometimes to give a kid 2 minutes, my hammer's broken, you were the last one that had it. Why don't you go into your room? I'm going to come in a couple minutes. We'll talk about it. Just give the kid 2 minutes to think about it instead of that impulsive automatic no, and then he's stuck with it, and you think he has a character flaw because he's a liar. In terms of lying, I think you really need to give some time. I think this question, like probably any question that's come up today, comes back to the same thing that we all learned as undergraduates. Any behavior that's reinforced will be repeated. So if you reinforce this guy when he's doing well and he's trying hard, and you just all over him with reinforcement, and you don't give it as much time as attention, I'm sure he's thinking, yeah, you're all over me when I lied yesterday, but I did a real good job today and I got no feedback on that. I think you've got to reinforce when he does, and it appears that he does have some good days. The behavior is pretty inconsistent. You got to reinforce that. It's not easy, as John said. Kids need love most when they deserve it least. And sometimes you think, I'm just not going to reinforce what he just did well because he was so awful yesterday. Well, you got to let that go. You're the adult. I think he needs a lot of positive reinforcement when he does things right.
I want to tell you about a young man named Donald. We were years ago in Washington. We were at the Vietnam War Memorial, and this young man he just constantly lied. It was a real issue all the time. And so he pointed to the wall and he said, "Hey, look, this is my uncle." And the names weren't even the same. They just had the first same 3 letters of the name. And I knew for sure that wasn't the case. And I said, Donald, I'll tell you what, I'm going to take you and we're going to go to a payphone. This was back when you had to use payphones. This is how far back that goes. So we're walking. I'm like, Donald, it's okay that you said that. If it's not true, just let me know, and we'll turn around and we'll join the group. It's not a big deal. No. You call my mom. You tell her. It's absolute. You ask her. She'll tell you. It's my uncle. So we get to the phone and I said, Don, this is your last chance. He goes, No, I want you to call her. So I call, and the mom's like, of course that's not his uncle. And I looked at Donald and I said, buddy, why? And this was his reaction. I don't know. And so often they don't know. And I'm working with a young man right now that's close to the family, and he immediately is going to tell a lie, and then the lie gets into this nasty attitudinal thing with his father, and everything kind of blows up, and it just gets really ugly. And then he digs into the lie and won't let it go, and starts just lashing out at everybody, you know, calling folks hypocrites, and I sat down with him and I said, this is the pattern that I've seen. You know, do you see this happening? And now again, having this conversation when he was calm and not invested in a lie, he said yes. And I said, can you imagine what your world would look like if you were given the opportunity, once you said a lie, to say, hey, you know what? It's okay. I understand that that's your first response. Just, you know, go back and think about it a little bit. Maybe we can talk for a minute. You're not in trouble. We just want to try and figure out what kind of solution we can find to keep this from happening again. And then you now are be given the choice whether or not you want to go down the path of this conflict, or, you know, step up and take responsibility. And that didn't immediately trigger or fix the situation. His father had to continue to remind him that they were working on this particular aspect of his behavior, and would he be willing to take some ownership and learn to deal with that a little bit. And it began to shift and change their dynamic significantly. Kids lie often either impulsively or because they feel a lack of control. And in doing so, if you can mitigate, if you can understand that an impulsive lie occurred and just sort of help back away from that and give them an opportunity to revisit that, you're going to be successful. And if you can find out where the power and control issue was and try and work from a solution base, the lie is a symptom, not the cause. And so, you know, it becomes something that is very difficult to deal with. But you know, I guess the final thing I would say on that is, if you feed a lot of energy into the fact that these lies are occurring, then that's going to become the focus of your relationship. What I did for Donald, you know, go back to my original story, is I stopped focusing on his lies and I started focusing on when Donald did things right, and I started rewarding him and the entire team when Donald was exceptional, and the lies stopped, and the group started seeing Donald differently. Donald started seeing himself differently because my focus changed for him. And so, you know, there's a lot to be said about you're ignoring certain behaviors that, you know, that you want to try and move beyond past. Because when you give fire, you know, oxygen, it flourishes. When you smother it or ignore it, eventually it smolders out.
Beautiful, beautiful.
I would just add again, lying, if I would call you, Liz, a liar, that's a very, very serious charge, a judgmental charge about your values. 9 times out of 10, when a kid lies, it's got nothing to do with his values. He's not a bad person. It's not a bad character. It's just he was in a jam and didn't know what to do. Other kids were talking about they went skiing, so he's going to say he went skiing. It's not a values thing. And I think we need to get past that when we deal with particularly impulsive kids.
Right, right. I just want to add something real quick. I have this learning loop theory that when we come up upon something, we have a choice automatically. We have a problem in front of us. We have a choice first. Then we take action. Then we have a consequence. It's either good or bad. And then we evaluate what we did. That's the learning loop. But what our kids do is they skip the choice part and they jump right in on the action. Then they get a consequence. So now they have to evaluate what to do with that consequence, and explaining it away with a lie is one of the easiest ways to go. Otherwise, you're going to suffer, some negativity, and you know that. So then they have to come around, and now they have a choice again. What are you going to do? Are you going to own up to that, or are you going to not? And they go back through the circle. But they tend to skip the first part. I'm going to make a good choice or a bad choice, and just jump into the action. So everything everybody has said is exactly right. Strength-based, give attention to your child's strengths and positivity, and you will see it grow. All right, next question. Our son, what do what role do you see parents playing in facilitating or mediating friendships in middle school and beyond so that positive engagement ensues between my child and someone else's? So this parent says they're not a helicopter parent, but they've seen their child and others lacking the social resilience that a person can build up through repeated successful and unsuccessful social interactions. So how can you encourage your child to hang in there and keep plugging away, trying to make positive social relationships?
If only we had somebody on the panel that had written a book on social skills.
Or just done a video.
By my side. It's by my side. Let me, if you don't mind, let me jump on this one. I think that parents have a huge role to play. In fact, it's incumbent upon them. I think it's a big part of the responsibility as a parent. To help them with things like friend selection. Our kids tend to overreach. You know, they want to have the captain of the football team come over and throw a ball around with them, and that's not going to happen. You know, most of the time for our kids, you need to help them select friends and say, who would you like to be a friend? Well, what do you have in common? Teach them what a friend is. I was counseling a kid, well, actually wasn't counseling, was in admissions. He came into my office. He was in the fourth grade, fifth grade. And he was sitting in front of me for the interview and his mom was sitting behind him. And I said, do you have a lot of friends in fifth grade, Michael? He said, yep, I've got 8 friends. And he said, I got 8 friends in my class. I looked back at his mom shaking his head. No, he doesn't. And I said, name your 8 friends, Michael. And he rattled off the names of 8 kids. And I said, why are they your friends? He said, they're the kids who don't pick on me. Kid didn't know what a friend was. He thought a friend was somebody who doesn't throw your hat out the bus window. You know, a friend is someone who doesn't knock the tray out of your hand in the cafeteria. He had no idea what a friend was. To him, a friend is someone who doesn't bully him, which is, you know, imagine being that age and not even know what it is. I'm a big believer in, there's a lot of this is on my website, a big believer in the coin of the realm now, which is, you know, home visits, you know, the idea of play dates. You know, when most of us were kids, you know, go outside and play all day. And then, you know, when it got dark, come in and get a flashlight and go back out again. That's what it was. It's not that way anymore. Play dates are the key. And I think that it's incumbent upon the parent to really plan these play dates. For a typical child, a play date is one mother calls them the other mother, they drop the kid off at 3 o'clock and pick them up at 5. That's it. A play date for our kids, you need to plan like the invasion of Normandy. And just a quick list of the things I suggest. If the kid's hosting a play date, before the guests come, give the kid the home rules. Give the host the home rules. You can't go in that shed. That's where Grandpa keeps his tools. That way, when the visitor says, when the guest says, "Ooh, let's go in there," you can say, "No, it's a rule." Like, you know, he does have to. Don't get in a fight about it. Just know that's a rule. We can't. My mom says that we can't. Only 2 in a play date. As soon as you get 3, it becomes a triangle, and you know who's going to be on the losing end of it. Get rid of the siblings. Tell the siblings that Johnny's having a play date. You can't be here because the sibling will become the more attractive social partner, and all of a sudden the guest will be hanging out with the sibling. Make him play the role of host. You've invited somebody over. If we're going to have a snack, you make the snack. You answer the door when he comes to the door. You bring him in and introduce him to the family. If the kid's got one thing that he's a model plane that he's sensitive about, put that away so that doesn't become an issue. And the other kid starts to play with and break it. And to remember, most kids remember the first 15 and last 15 minutes of any activity. When any kid tells you about a movie, he tells you about the first 15 minutes and the last 15 minutes. And that's the way it is play dates. Make sure the first 15 minutes go smoothly, and make sure the last 15 minutes go smoothly. But you need to really, really plan a play date. And in many communities, that is the coin of the realm. And I think that's the parent's role to really view this as a very, very important part of this kid's social development. There's also a lot about when he's a guest. You know, that if you go to Michael's house and you're a guest at Michael's house and Michael picks on his younger brother, you don't pick on his younger brother. That's not something you do. Take a look at the family. Did everybody take the shoes off before they come in? Does everybody say grace before the meal? And really teaching them to look at a social environment and follow the rules. You know, when in Rome, do what the Romans do. I think, bottom line is I think parents have a huge responsibility to help foster social development with these kids.
And one of the things that we've done at our home, because our, we're in that realm, is we've made our house the most attractive place to be. And so, we've got the right snacks, we've got the right activities, we've got the right gaming devices, we've got all the things that are the kids want to play with, and so, the kids feel welcome at our home. We have fun together. And we've kind of been able to keep an eye on some of the social skill pieces. And one of the things to remember about this is that, these kids are anywhere from 3 to 5 years less mature than their neurotypical peers. And so as they get older, it's going to get easier. My son was the weird dude. He was, his social skills were absolutely horrid. And somewhere as he entered into high school, he decided he didn't want to be the weird kid anymore. And now he's got blossoming friendships and things are much better. But I really wouldn't have believed that was capable, back when he was in the 6th and 7th grade. So it's going to get better.
And when you're doing kind of helping them select friends, I have no problem with our kids having friends that are 2 or 3 years younger or older than they are. I mean, if you're in middle school and you hang out with kids from the 5th grade, you've got a status. You've automatically got status. You go to the middle school, you've got a locker, and now you have no problem at all. I mean, think about it. If the bunch of us, I mean, I look at at least the pictures I've got, there's probably a span of 30 or 40 years in our ages, and yet we could sit down and talk about politics, talk about sports, talk about whatever, and get along. Only in childhood do we make that delineation. 10-year-olds need to be 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds need to be with 11-year-olds. As John said, once you become an adult, the difference between a 25-year-old and a 29-year-old is nothing. But when you're a kid, the difference in a 7-year-old and an 11-year-old is huge. So I think wherever the kid can find friendship, let him be there.
Oh, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. And I'm hearing you say also it's an explicitly taught. We have to explicitly teach kids how to look for those things in that social environment. That's beautiful.
If I could just wrap up one more piece, and this is another piece of Rick's work that we've talked about, and we did a social skills thing not too long ago, and that is that, a post-analysis of how it went. How did it go? What went right? What didn't go wrong? What didn't go well? Where were there some mistakes made? And then, again, if you read any of Rick's work, you'll hear the term social autopsy, and just sort of peeling away the layers of what you could learn from this experience. And then finally, one of the other pieces is role play some of those important things in advance. That can be just such a really remarkable way to help them get prepared for some of the areas that they stumble. One of the things that I did with my son, again, is, socially, he was a lot of fun to pick at, and so I would pretend to take his hat and keep it away from him. And he knew that I was pretending, and then asking him how he was going to react. And when he reacted like, give me the hat back, I would just continue on and it'd be more fun for me. But when he just walked away from me and just didn't give it any energy, it just took all the wind out of it. And so we actually practiced some of those kinds of, social skill relationship pieces so that he was prepared for that. The other kind of component to this is, you want very much to give them those opportunities, but to learn from those experiences. So you give them enough room to enjoy them, and then, with a watchful eye, be ready to intervene when, before things kind of get out of hand. What do people connect about? Well, just like Rick said, they connect about things that they're both passionate about. And what are kids most passionate about these days? More often than not, it's gaming. It's different video games that they play. And so, if they connect, then those connection points are going to be the basis of that mutual understanding, and develop that friendship.
John, I'm sorry, quickly, just the idea of autopsies at the end of a play date, to sit down and not just and review it with the kid, and not just the negative stuff. Say, Michael's really, really happy when what did you do that made him laugh? well, I told him a joke for my joke book. Well, that's something you might want to do later on. And also, and this can be a little bit painful, if your child is a guest on a play date, call the mom or dad the day after and say, I want you to be really, really honest with me. How did it go? Did anything happen? Oh, no, he was fine. No, if he was fine, that's great. But please, if anything, because we're trying to make this a social skill of his. And you'll find that the parents, as kind of less involved observers, can give you some pretty good insights into the pluses and the minuses for that day.
Well, there was that one thing.
Cat on fire. That didn't go.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and I want to follow up because we have another question on along the same lines, and this, it sounds like a kid who is not really tuned in at all with what's going on socially around him. So how do you teach social awareness, how to act in certain situations? For example, a group of friends talking and he just starts walking around the room in circles, or you're on a golf course and he's just swinging the golf club just wherever, doesn't pay any attention to who's around him. Or, you know, on a bike trail and just tends to go off and, you know, almost runs over other people. Yeah. So he is on medication, but they want to help him, but not affect his self-esteem. They want him to keep his self-esteem strong. So this is so in the same lines. I just wondered if we could follow up with that.
Well, one of the things I've recommended for years is the content. Let me use this example. The kid is going to go to a Boy Scout meeting on Tuesday night. It's his first Boy Scout meeting. He just wanted to join the Scouts' first meeting. The day before the meeting, mom and dad have to do two things: prepare the child for the situation and the situation for the child. Take the kid to the site where the meeting's going to be the next night and say, this is the room it's going to be in. There's the flag. You know you like touching the flag, and once you touch it now and then you won't need to do that again. Here's where the bathrooms are. They've got a projector set up. You probably won't leave that alone, but it's just like Dad's projector. So if the Scoutmaster says, does anyone know how to use a projector? You can do that. In other words, get him familiar with the place he's going to be in the situation. Prepare him for that. That way, when he goes in, there's going to be a lot of new stuff he's got to learn, but at least he knows where the bathrooms are and where everything is. And the second thing that parents, I think, forget to do is you prepare the child for the situation. Now prepare the situation for the child. By calling the Scoutmaster and saying, look, I'm sending you a kid. He's a terrific kid, but let me tell you some things about him. He nods like he understands, even if he doesn't. So what we found very helpful is when you give an instruction, to ask him to repeat it back. Because he's going to look like he understands, but he really, and just give the Scoutmaster some care and feeding tips. In my motivation book, I put together, you know, if you're going to leave your dog with friends for the weekend, you give them a list of things that you know, to do with the dog. If you're going to send a kid to art lessons, you ought to send him with a dossier, with a, you know, these are the things he does well. This is what he does. Here are some things we've learned. Here's some things you ought to know about this kid if you're going to work success. It's such a proactive and preventive thing to do. So, you know, you pull up to the supermarket and you turn to him and you say, Mike, when going to the supermarket, let me tell you something. I need a gallon of loaf of bread. We can't look at the lobsters today. We just don't have time to look at the lobsters. I'm doing my big shopping tomorrow. I'll take you quickly. But in other words, setting it up before there's a problem. You know, saying, and when we're going to the golf course, remember, you never ever take your golf club unless just to taking a shot. Just as you're leaving the car, give him the rules, give him the basics, so it's fresh in his mind when he goes in. And I think if you do that, in many, many cases, it kind of takes care of itself.
We've added some code words. So if I'm there and these things begin to happen and I say this benign code word, then only he knows what that means. And so,
Absolutely.
you know, he hears the code word and he's like, oh, I'm doing that thing. I need to stop. Then, you know, we've also, and again, I don't know how effective this is for other families, but I know that my wife and I sometimes will take great pleasure in mimicking some of the behaviors and acting like our children, and then asking them, you know, what about that was off-putting, and letting them analyze that. And we've done it in a way that didn't feel vindictive or mean-spirited, but giving them a chance to sort of analyze, you know, and actually we would continue with it until our kids got so aggravated that they begged us to stop. And so, you know, but it gave them a chance to, you know, to then us to say, what about that was aggravating? Or, could you see why, why this particular behavior, while we're trying to have a conversation, just walking in circles around you, because, that's a behavior I see a lot. I see that circle walking with kids all the time. I really do. And part of it is they're just,
I think it's kind of, yeah, and it's a self-stimulation thing too. I think that if the thing is that I used to say our kids are like, remember we used to study about the amoebas and paramecium, little single-celled animals. They're constantly searching for food, 24/7 searching for food. That's a whole life. With our kids, it's they're searching for stimulation. They need stimulation like you and I need oxygen. So as soon as a kid is put in a situation where there's no stimulation, he will create stimulation because he needs to have it. That's why hitting himself and pushing the kid next to him, that basically he's saying this situation is not giving me the stimulation I need. It's like you're cutting off my oxygen, so I'm going to create stimulation. And I think so many of those behaviors have to do with that.
I'm going to ask one more question, which I'm kind of combining three questions here, and it is about sort of transition to independence. We talked about it a little bit earlier with having that list of what adult characteristics you need to know in order to transition into adulthood. But right now, we have parents who have their kids at home who are 20 to 23 or 4, who aren't cleaning their rooms or, aren't following the rules or aren't getting up or aren't contributing or whatever. So how can they get those kids back sort of in the team mode, working together with the family without having World War I or II or III or, arguing? So that sort of covers 3 or 4 of these questions. And then we'll start doing questions that are in our chat box and get with our live audience here. So.
Okay. Anybody? I understand from looking at your website and remembering many conversations with John and Jonathan, is you guys really subscribe to the Frostig stuff on traits of. I think the most important one there, and it addresses your question, the most important skill that the Frostig work talks about is that the kid needs to learn, young person needs to learn how to create and to maintain a support system. That basically, particularly now, we are in this together. I mean, we're all, we're not a civilization anymore. We're little pods of 3 or 4 people. We're so separated from each other. And I think the idea of teaching him that if you need my support, we're a support system. In order to keep that support system alive, we got to do 3 things. You've got to use me appropriately. My job is not to continually tell you to pick up your socks. That's not my job. You've got to use me appropriately. You've got to reciprocate. Bottom line is, if I'm going to make dinner for you, then you're going to do the dishes. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not a punishment. It's just a part of the way the world goes around. And you need to nurture the relationship. And I've said to kids whose families are in trouble, you continually make withdrawals from the support system, but you're not making any deposits. And you can't continue to do that. You've got to contribute to the greater good. It's not that the family is not there for you. You're part of the team and you've got to contribute. And kids just don't get that. Tell you just a really quick story, and I'll give you the Reader's Digest version of it. But we had a kid at the school I ran at the Cape. He was a great kid. He's 17 years old, great kid. But high drama, it just everything was the biggest or the best or the worst. He was just a high drama kid. And he was from Houston, and I got a call in my office from his dad, and his dad said, I got some bad news for you, but Austin's grandfather passed away, and we'd like you to get him packed up and get him home for the services. And I thought, boy, this is not going to go well. I mean, he's just such a high drama kid. And so I went to the psychologist who knew Austin really well, and I said, you got to pull him out of class, take him, tell him about his grandfather, get him packed up, bring him down. We'll make arrangements to fly him to Houston. So about 20 minutes later, I could hear Austin in the front office wailing and crying. My grandpa's dead. I'm never going to see him again. And the secretaries are all making tea and stuff. And I said, well, I'm going to take a chance here. When you're on thin ice, you might as well dance. I said, I'm going to take a chance here. And I brought him in my office and I said, Austin, he said, my grandpa died. And I said, Austin, I know that. And that's very, very sad. I met him. I met your grandpa. He was here for a parent weekend and he was a wonderful man. And I feel very badly for you. But Austin, this weekend isn't about you. It's about your dad who lost his father. And your grandmother who lost her life partner of 50 years. This isn't about you. They want you home to support them. They need you. Now, they've been a wonderfully supportive family. They've been tremendous in their support of you. It's time to give back now. He looked at me like I'd invented canned beer. He never imagined that he could play the role of support within the system, that he was going to make. Well, the long story short, his father called me the following Tuesday, and he said Ricky was amazing. Never left his grandmother's side. He said he must have offered 20 times for me. Do you want coffee, Dad? Do you want a sandwich at the reception? It was the first time anybody ever said it's time to give back. If the support system is going to work, you got to make deposits to it too. I love that work that they've done on teaching kids how to build a support system and what their role is in a support system. And now that your little pods of 3 or 4 people, to sit down and say, we are a team, and if we're going to get through this, we need to support each other. It's almost a once in a century opportunity to teach that skill to our kids, because right now we're all in our separate lifeboats, and it's not going to work unless everybody contributes, makes and reciprocates and nurtures the relationship. By making breakfast for Mom one morning to surprise her, that's how you keep that relationship going, by doing things and by sharing things and by showing that you care about the other person. Ironically, and I'm doing another one of these for some school tomorrow, that's going to be my message. Is what an opportunity this is to teach our kids that incredibly important skill of how to make a support system work.
We get so, and we as parents bear some of that responsibility, because we get caught up sometimes in not requiring or asking or even giving the opportunity for our these young men and women to thrive, and ask enough of them. I think a couple things that are critical. One, what motivates your son or daughter, and knowing what motivates them, then trying to utilize those motivating components in how you make the requests or create those expectations. A second one that's important is, what do you control? As young men and women become 19, we're going back to the screen time. What is it that you still actually have some control over? Because for some young men and women, it's not going to just simply be enough to do it because it's the right thing. There's going to have to be a kind of a juice squeeze component to that. And so still knowing what you have control of in your household, and just in terms of laying out expectations, we need these things to happen, and if those things occur, then these are the wonderful resources that you have access to. If they don't occur, then we're going to have to divert resources to those things, and so knowing what you have control of. And then third is those conversations that Rick is talking about. Those aren't once a week, once a month conversations. Those are once a day conversations. Those are, you instill that by having a chance on a daily basis to look at and say, how can I support you? Would you like to know how you can support me? That's happening at our home right now. We're utilizing the opportunity to help our kids do and invest more. And if they refuse to do or invest, then that's an entirely different conversation that they don't find particularly pleasant, because I'm really good at knowing what I still can and have control of. So I think it's critical to look at those 3 components. The beautiful outcome of that is that support network gets bolstered and gets nurtured and gets encouraged, but we have to find ways to create guidelines and structure that allow us to sort of thrive together as a little mini community. And if somebody isn't doing their part, then what happens? Because the part where, and one of the reasons why people are asking those questions is you feel powerless. And so, first examine A, what motivates your kid, and then B, what power and control do you still honestly really have that is not empty threats?
And John, I think you speak to a couple of questions that we have in the sidebar, so that's a good segue And we have a couple of people asking about just that. How do I motivate my child who just really doesn't seem to be wanting to do anything? And so I think that would cover a couple of the questions that we have here. And then the other thing is, the other question that we're having, and I don't know, Dale, if you want to take this one, is about school. The kids aren't getting online to do school like they should be doing. Parents are worried if kids are going to fall behind because of online school, and because of their, you know, sort of lack of engagement in it. So two things, and so that the third thing is the kids are definitely not motivated to do school. That's number one. But some are not motivated to do anything. So I'm going to throw that out to the panel.
So if Dale, if you'll answer the school question right now, because I know you've got to go just quickly, but if only we had someone on the panel that had written a book on motivation. All right, Dale.
I know, and I can't wait to hear that. I hate that I'm going to have to run to my department meeting for school. You know, one of the things that I think has been difficult, and Joe, you may be able to speak to this as well. As a school, we have had to learn, because this is new to all of us, we've had to be flexible in the expectation. You know, as teachers, you have aspirations for what you're going to accomplish during the school year. And, you know, sometimes those, we find those are a little loftier than might have been anticipated to begin with. You know, what I have found, because I've really had to work with parents and students, keep them motivated, getting their schoolwork done. And I've really found having the students understand the importance of finishing this year, that they've done the hard work and they need to keep doing the work to finish the year and to get the payoff of that. And just having them immediately understanding if they don't show up to class, I mean, we're emailing them, calling them, you know, you need to get yourself in class, even if there's only a few minutes left. You have to get that work in, having the negative effect. You know, I guess we're fortunate in that, you know, at our school, it does matter to the boys. They're not super motivated, but I think part of it in my role in the Learning Resource Program, because I am calling these guys, meeting with them individually, working with them, they see that I'm invested in their success. And I think it helps them recognize that they can be successful. It's been a challenge, and you know, trying to work with them and having them recognize the benefit and the payoff of going ahead and doing this and not expending, you know, they're expending more energy trying not to do it than the energy it's going to take to actually get it done. You know, it's and it's taken some conversations with parents and having parents kind of come alongside us. When they're at school, there's things we can do, but you know, we've really had to take a partnership, you know, with parents to at least get them to the computer so that then we can work with them and trying to motivate them and getting them to get their school work done. Teachers have had to be a little more forgiving on the late factor, but it's been an interesting process. And I'm really proud of our kids for them to do this online, never having done it before. I mean, a lot of, you know, young adults are doing it in college. And I've been very impressed with how they have become more successful and taking more responsibility for it. I know that doesn't answer the question very well because it's kind of been a learning process as we've gone along. And what I have found is the boys have responded to my willingness to work with them, my students, my willingness to work with them and have them understand and encourage them and have them understand, yes, you can do this. Let's get it done. And then you can, you know, get outside to the basketball hoop.
Perfect. Perfect.
I just wanted to say thanks for the opportunity. I actually have to go to another meeting also, and so I'm going to cut out right now also. But Rick, thank you for being a part of this with us. I really appreciate that, and everybody else.
My pleasure.
And I wish that I could continue listening to Rick's answer, but
Jeremy, you got a question about GAP, and I from Lisa, and I will give you her email after this, and it was a motivation question. So I will copy and paste that and get that to you so y'all can be in contact privately. How's that?
sounds great.
Okay, perfect.
I'm going to have to say goodbye. Rick, it's so good to see you. I hope we get to see you again. Liz, thank you for doing this. You know,
Thank
Rick,
you,
you and John have so much wisdom, and which is why I've always loved doing the SOAR thing. And thank you very much. It really is good to see you again. And I hate to have to leave. Hopefully I'll be able to watch the rest of it at some point, Liz.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank
I'll send
you.
you the link.
Thank
Thank you. Thank
Mhm.
you very much. I just, there was just a thing that popped up. So before Rick answers the question, and I wanted to give everybody your website, Rick, and your contact information. So your website is?
It's very complicated. Rick at ricklevoie.com. So
Okay.
it's R-I-C-K at RICKLAVOIE.com. And I'm religious, by the way, about responding to emails. I fired off a 6-page email to somebody who wrote me a question the other day. So, and I've got nothing else to do. Help me. So you know, I'd love to do that. And you know, the motivation, I'm delighted to chip around the edges of the motivation question. Motivation is such a huge issue and so individual. And I think that's one of the mistakes we make is we try to use what motivates us in order to motivate our kids. And in the book that I wrote, I talked about the fact that there are basically 8 different kinds of motivational profiles that people have. And if you're a person who's motivated by competition, and you've got a kid who's motivated by affiliation, being with other people, you're not going to motivate him using strategy you do. What I will do, and I'll commit to you this right now, I would love to do one of these on motivation. Let's set that up, because it is really such a huge topic, and I would be delighted to. Just on the surface of it, if a kid's not motivated to do, any person is not motivated to do something, it's because one of 3 things are missing. In order to be motivated to do something, you've got to find the goal attractive. You've got to feel that you're going to be able to do it, that it's within your skill level, and it's not going to kill you. And thirdly, that you will be successful. When a person's not motivated to do something, it's because one of those 3 things are missing. I'm going to run down to the store. There's a little store that we're using, and our masks and gloves and all that, and they're going to sell lottery tickets. I'm not going to buy one. Not because the goal's not attractive. You know, winning $1 million would be swell. Not because it's a lot of work. It's just give a lady $10, she'll give me a ticket. It's because I don't think I'm going to win. So that's why I'm not motivated to do it. And in the workshop, I do just a whole lot of things that I'm not motivated to do. I pick someone out of the audience and say, I'm not motivated to beat up this woman. You know, well, why not? Well, you know, I could probably do it. She's much smaller than I am. I could probably do it. I'd probably be successful. It wouldn't be a whole lot of work, but in that case, the goal isn't attractive. So that's why I'm not motivated to do that. And what this model does is enables the parent to look and say, one of these 3 things is missing. The reason he's not willing to do the homework is either because there's no reward at the end of there's nothing at the end of the rainbow. I don't necessarily get any reinforcement if I do it. Secondly, that or he thinks it's going to kill him. It's too much work, or he doesn't think he's going to succeed. So I would love to do that. I'd love to come back and do just one on motivation. I know John is a student of motivation as well.
I'm penciling you in as we speak, and we'll get together on the date and the time and what works for you. But yeah, that's beautiful, beautiful.
Hey, Rick, what is the website that you folks have asked so we can put it on the chat room?
I did it. It's Rick at ricklevoie.com.
Yeah.
I put it in there. Did it not show up? I didn't. Okay, try it again. I probably didn't do it.
ricklevoie.com.
Rick
Yeah.
at Levoie.
Yeah, there you go.
Could I just do one quick thing before, if we're kind of wrapping things up? And I hope you don't think this is patronizing. I'm doing, as I said, I'm doing another school program tomorrow, and it's the Foreman School in Litchfield, Connecticut, great program. But as John will know, people who head up special needs programs, residential it's a small universe. I mean, I could probably name all 60 people who do this for a living. And it's kind of a small community. We've really gotten to know each other. We've all become friends because we do the same work, and nobody understands how tough it is except somebody who's already done it. And so I've been in touch with a number of school heads, you know, just to kind of give them some good wishes and tell them how glad I am that I'm not, that I'm on the sidelines for this, and just to kind of give them a attaboy and, you know, stick with it. Of all the schools I've contacted, you and Foreman were the only two schools that have thought to bring the parents into this. They're trying to take care of the kids, and God bless them, that's what they're doing. But only the two programs and all the ones I've talked about who have thought the parents need some support too. We've got to reach out to the parents, and hats off for that. And that's one of the reasons when Liz asked me to do it, I absolutely leapt at it, because that's what's missing in the formula is our kids go to, our grandkids live in Brooklyn, and the school system, New York City schools, God bless them, is doing a ton of work with the kids, but nothing for the parents. And it's a tremendous amount of pressure on parents right now. And so the idea that you guys thought I had to do that, hats off to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you. Joe, did you want to say something?
Just that, you know, this is not the prime environment for our students to flourish in, even though they are the I generation. Online learning, you know, it misses the mark. So it is difficult, and you know, like Rick said, the parents are doing a huge part of our job right now while they're at home, which is tough. Yeah. It's a tough job, you know, to be an academic motivator, you know, as well as a parent.
Yeah.
And you know, my only advice, you know, on top of a hearty thanks, is that, you know, we just got to keep pushing through until they finish. It's not, you know, doing online school is not attractive, you know, for our population of students. Our students, you know, education is a very personalized thing, and especially for our students, you know, that interaction, that stimulation of the interaction, that connection is what, you know, helps spur them on and motivate them to see the success that they can achieve. And, you know, the online platforms are unfortunately, you know, somewhat impersonal. So, you know, all of the things that we talked about today, you know, working with, you know, your child, we just have to keep pushing through with them. You know, yeah.
It's a very unnatural setting that these families are in. And it's creating tremendous stress on families. And I honestly think, and I don't think this is overstating the case, this is going to be what defines this generation of kids. You know, our parents had World War II. We had, you know, whatever you want to pick, 9/11 or whatever. But this will define this generation, and bringing tremendous pressure. And not to kind of wrap things up on a negative note, but good Lord, today there is such an uptick in domestic violence in Europe at this point that in Amsterdam, they drive police cars up and down the street and stop, and the policeman says over the bullhorn, if you need to get out of your house, leave now. And these women are running and jumping in the police car and being taken away. Which I mean, it's pathetic. This is a very unnatural situation we've all been put in. And some families handle it better than others. And I think it's, you know, all the jokes you hear about now, the parents finally realize what we teachers have been going through. No, nobody's ever done this. Nobody's had to raise the kid and teach the kid at the same time. Nobody's been the one that makes his breakfast and also tells him he got 5 wrong in his spelling test. No one's ever had to play that role before. And it brings a lot of stress. And the idea, again, that you guys were forward thinking enough to offer some comfort to parents. Again, God bless you.
Yeah, we are definitely here for them. And Paula, did you have a question? I see ya. You're muted. You're muted. You push your red button.
I'm just thrilled to be on here listening, and I haven't seen Rick in should I say 100 years, or John when I first came out to see SOAR before I think the IECA hit the program. And Rick and Janet, hello to you.
So good to see you.
Guys.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Great.
Thank you, Paula. I just want to share that we've gotten a lot of people have been saying thank you for this. A lot of folks have been saying, you know, please hold more of these Zoom meetings. They're helpful and they give us time to regroup. And, you know, I think it's just good hearing that, you know, you're not the only parent out there that's struggling with some of these things. There seem to be, you know, some themes, motivation, or, you know, frustration. Really, the arguing is really just based on, I think, frustration and those kinds of things. And so we have been trying to hit those topics for you so that you know you're not alone, because I think that's where the frustration builds to that point that Rick was talking about, where families just are, you know, the tension is so high. So I think that we're doing good, and I mean, you all are doing good, and we're doing our best to try to help you. So I'm trying to multitask just like every other ADHD kid out there, you know, and it's not working. But anyway, if anybody has a question right now, I know we've gone a little bit over. If you want to undo your camera like Paula did, and we'll see you pop up, we would be happy to answer your questions.
Okay, well, having no questions being asked, I would like to continue to thank Liz. Folks, I received a couple private messages from folks in the chat room, and know that you can contact me, and certainly that's why Liz is here, to help brainstorm some of these challenges and issues. Rick, you know, we've been friends a long time, and it's just such an honor to have you join us, and we'll definitely take you up on that.
Do it.
You know, and thanks again.
Seeing Paula was a welcome surprise. I didn't see that coming. I'll pass your best on to Janet.
All right.
I just want to say one thing from the mom who said her son was having difficulty telling the truth. She said, for lying, we always said to him, you get a bloop for the day. So when he impulsively lied and you give him a second, then you can offer, are you sure that was your bloop for the day? And then if he says yes, you know, then say, okay, and then just move on. So this was advice, I think, advice to the mom whose son was lying. So that was really good advice. I wanted to share it. Okay, well, we'll close out. I'm saving the chat. I will try to get to people whose questions were not answered privately via email. And we keep your eyes open for the next one of these. It will be coming up. And thank you, Rick, for staying on the team, man. We love having you.
Okay. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.